repeatedly said before and after he lost power that the United States had conspired to oust him. He says Washington was angry at him for visiting Russia early in the war in Ukraine as part of Pakistan's independent foreign policy. Just as it is difficult for Imran to show credible evidence behind the conspiracy, it is also difficult for former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's Muslim League-nominated new Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif to completely repair relations between the two countries. However, after Imran's departure, many see the possibility of better relations between the United States and Pakistan's leading figures. Speaking to Al Jazeera, Aisha Jalal, a professor at Taft University in the United States, said that the Pakistani rulers had repeatedly spoken of foreign conspiracies because they could not control their own homes. They have blamed foreign countries for not being able to solve the problem. But Pakistan's rulers have relied on such rhetoric because US relations with the country have long been strained. As a result, the main task of the new Prime Minister and military leadership will be to repair relations with the United States. In a message on April 13, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken congratulated Shahbaz Sharif and said that he hoped that long-term cooperation between the two countries would continue. Sharif also said in a Twitter message on the same day that his country would continue to build relations with other countries on the basis of mutual respect and equality. But the question is, how important is Pakistan to the Biden administration now? In an article in the Atlantic Council, a U.S. think tank, Nazir Ahmed Mir of Jamia Millia Islamia University in New Delhi says relations between the United States and Pakistan have been strained over the past few decades. On the one hand, the United States has sought Pakistan's cooperation in regional security, especially in Afghanistan. In return, Pakistan sought financial assistance from the United States, U.S. Officials have repeatedly accused Pakistan of not cooperating with them in the so-called war on terror, and of harboring armed groups such as the Taliban. Islamabad, on the other hand, has said that Pakistan has been the victim of U.S. drone strikes and has suffered heavy losses in the U.S.-led war in Afghanistan. Madia Afzal, a fellow at the Brookings Institution, another U.S. think tank, recalls that relations between the two countries deteriorated further in 2016 when the Donald Trump administration changed U.S. foreign policy and cut off security assistance to Pakistan. However, after Imran Khan's visit to Washington in mid-2019, Islamabad's relations with Washington returned to normal. Because at that time the new goal of U.S. foreign policy was to leave Afghanistan. The Americans were in talks with the Taliban to implement that, and Pakistan was playing a very important role there. In an interview with the New York Times in June 2021, Imran Khan said that Pakistan's relations with the United States were one-sided during the war on terror. Because the United States thought it was providing financial assistance to Pakistan. Therefore, Pakistan should follow the policy of the United States. Imran said he wanted an equal relationship with the United States, which would include ample economic opportunities for Pakistan. Madia Afzal says Pakistan's importance to Washington has diminished significantly since Joe Biden took power. Because the United States left Afghanistan last August, India is now more important to the Americans for controlling China. But historically, Pakistan's military has been at the center of U.S. relations with Pakistan. Imran Khan has been adapting to the policy of the army since taking power. Both emphasized Pakistan's independent foreign policy, through which Pakistan will maintain good relations with all countries. But over the past few months, the Imran government's ties with Beijing and Moscow have grown. But relations with Washington have not improved. Pakistan's military has always wanted good relations with Washington. The military did not want to improve relations with Beijing, let alone Washington. Aisha Jalal says that it is not Imran Khan's policy to balance relations with Washington and Beijing. This is the state policy of Pakistan. But this balance of Pakistan's foreign policy is not acceptable to all. Speaking to CNBC, James Schomerlein, director of the Albright Stonebridge Group in Washington, says that Imran Khan has embraced China by changing Pakistan's historic Washington-centric policy, which is very dangerous for Pakistan. Because even though Pakistan wants to export to China, in reality Pakistan's exports go to the United States and Europe. Iqbal Singh Sevier, director of the Institute of South Asian Studies at the National University of Singapore, says Pakistan is currently among the 23rd IMF aid packages to go bankrupt. The country's inflation has now exceeded 10%. Shahbaz Sharif is likely to run for more loans from the IMF. As a result, Pakistan will have to ensure financial sector change to meet the IMF's tough conditions. At the same time, the government has to increase taxes and increase investment. And Shahbaz Sharif's government may have to do this while maintaining subsidies. Pakistan's